but Cheryl is a musician also, so we get the gift of music this morning, as well as his tremendously well-planned training that she's going to share with us this morning. I first heard about Cheryl through some clients of mine who were finding her through, I assume, the PR that she shared with the newspaper, through the newspaper and that sort of thing. But they came back and told me how wonderful their class was and how helpful it was to them, as I had even not diagnosed, I overlooked their attention issues and thought it was more attributable to other things. But nonetheless, they found a great deal of help. And so I started checking out Cheryl and finding out more about her. And of course, you've met her here. So now she's training with us. But that's one gift. I think of Esther. I don't know if we haven't talked about this or anything, but I think of Esther in a particular Beth Moore study that I went through, the meaningfulness to me of the importance of timing, and of course God's timing. He knows the seasons and when we're ready to do things and use our gifts, but also of course He prepares us and uses our history to develop definitely our skills and the surrounding circumstances. But also He uses our own history and hopes that we will respond with our history to build our testimony and share about Him. So, for such a time as this, Cheryl's here today. I wanted to tell you about some developments for the October 1st training that we're planning. It's less than 3 months away now, which is sort of daunting in my mind. I felt like we were on top of things. We've looked at 2 locations. That's the immediate question to decide upon, and then we can do the blitz of PR and so on. But please save the date, October 1st. We're looking at 2 locations. IPFW has offered to co-sponsor us, and we would have to go through their continuing studies program, which may be an advantage, but they would keep part of the proceeds, and minimally, but $5 each registration. But they would also do a fair amount of the organizing as far as collecting registration information through their website and some other. So there may be some advantages to that. I don't know the downside, and so that's some of the questions. The space looks great. I think would be very useful for us. It might even reach a few new people, students certainly, but others who may have connections with IPFW. So that's kind of exciting, kind of some unanswered questions about that. And Heartland Church is another great opportunity to host us there. So one or the other. So keep that in prayer. I also would like you to keep Tim Warner in your prayers. Tim and Eileen are planning to marry next Saturday. Are marrying next Saturday. We're gonna claim that, and we're gonna pray for God's will be done through the whole process, through every piece of it. Any other prayer requests? I'm going to be traveling next week to New York. Let me just say that we will have a reception on the 23rd at Fellowship Church, to which you're invited. It'll be 2 to 4 in the afternoon. And didn't get invitations out to everybody, but you would be more than welcome. And next month's training, Kathy, is Amy Aldridge, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. She's going to be talking about the I generation. How do you connect with the I generation? How do they think differently than we do? That kind of, how do you do that? That would be great. That's kind of Amy's specialty. She works with children and adolescents, and so is really tuned in and connected to that.
Probably how we can connect as well, instead
yes.
of the we-they thing.
Yes.
And then September, Dr. Souls, right?
Yes, Dr. Souls is going to talk about brain chemistry, change your brain, change your thinking, and probably many of you are already familiar with the title similar to that. And his is actually a 2-parter, so he's going to present first in September and then again in January. And and so Greg is always a great presenter and has a lot of wonderful information, so that promises to be excellent.
So I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl. Thanks for coming. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
I was wondering if we might start today with a scripture reading and a song. Maybe it's a church musician in me, but could we stand, please? And whoa, I'm not moving. Let's see.
Is it turned on?
Oh, that would help. Yeah, one of it's on. Okay, sorry,
Put the enter button on the back. You didn't check batteries, did we?
There we go. So may we read together from Isaiah 61. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the afflicted. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to captives and freedom to prisoners, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to grant those who mourn in Zion, giving them a garland instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the mantle of praise for a spirit fainting, so they shall be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified.
Pointed at the laptop.
Okay, we will glorify. So please join with me. What should not be said. And we invite you to join us this morning. And we ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I am the most comfortable behind one of these. Oh, gosh. So, the journey. So thank you so much for inviting me to be among you. And I have counseled for several years in my life, both in New Jersey and here in Fort Wayne. And I can think of two people in particular that changed the entire course of my life. One person in coming to Fort Wayne, and another in getting involved with ADHD, which I taught special ed music for some years, but we were not really trained very much in those days, and I really hardly knew what it was. So. We moved to Fort Wayne, a musician by background, teacher, church musician, did a little opera for a while there, a very long time ago. But we moved here in 2003, and we had childhood friends here. We had traveled here many times. My husband, Marty, back there, he had retired from New York City School, and we were having a lot of transition in our life, I guess you would say, and a lot of personal growth. So it's sort of like the insides were doing this and coming to an open area. I don't know if it sounds crazy, but it sort of matched what was going on inside of us. So in 2003 on, again, transition, moving, the last of our parents dying, certain health concerns, job changes, children going off to college, and I'll throw menopause in there too. So 2006, I was diagnosed with ADHD. Great, one more thing to feel good about, So I had gone for a med check to Dr. Waldo, who's not in town here anymore, and he kept saying, there's something else going on here, something else, and he must have said it 5 times. So I finally said, well, for goodness sakes, will you tell me what you're thinking it is? So he said, well, let's just do it now. So we did an assessment, and I left with a script in my hand and a little flyer. And then when I went to get my prescription, Adderall, I had to show my license. What's this? I felt like a criminal. I had to show my license. What is it? But I can say that Adderall was, all I can say is that I had a suitcase packed the night before going on vacation for the first time in my life. It was almost as if it was cruise control on my van. When you set the 2 buttons and the second one kicks in and you feel the pedal start to go down. That's almost exactly what I felt. All of a sudden, my body was going with me. I always worked hard, but it was a struggle. It was a struggle to organize, always. So it was the beginning of a whole new journey. And I was working with a therapist at Harvest, and she thought that it would be nice to connect me with a woman in town who lived with ADD for many years, Lisa. And this woman met me at a coffee shop, and I really wasn't into, computer, internet too much 6 years ago. And I don't know, it was something about seeing another person who was transitioning themselves, and she brought resources, she brought a DVD to share with me. And I don't know, maybe the isolation of it all, but I didn't feel alone. And she herself had moved out of the finance area, was becoming a life coach, so she had a little coaching group for women in the back of the anchor room, the then anchor room, and it was just life-changing for us. We did some brain exercises, we did life coaching, discovered our strengths, the transferables we had from one area to another, and at that point, I'd not been doing music, choir stuff for quite some time, and I've always felt that a spiritual gift was encouragement. And so, thinking back in my life, was it really being a classically trained musician that built a volunteer program somewhere, a volunteer base? Not really, it was a lot more than that. And I always loved encouraging people, helping them see their gifts, use their gifts, and coaching was really pretty much the same. So after that time, again, transition, I went to a coaching school that was ADHD specific and accredited with the ICF. The International Coaching Federation is kind of the watchdog coaching group because anyone can really hang a shingle out, but this requires that you are trained and better yet, even certified. So I thought, well, if nothing else, my daughter had been diagnosed in the meantime, and we had a whole neurological panel done for her since she was going off to St. Francis. So I thought, if nothing else, I'll help us. I'll learn more to help us. So I'm never thinking that I would really end up doing that myself, per se. But the gift of coaching, I really think it was God's ordained path. I've done music all my life. I played in church when I was a small kid, 8 years old, a long time doing that. And doing something like this was, who am I if I'm outside of music? My confidence was in music. Well, that's one thing, but if you're not doing music, you have a problem. So I think it was God's ordained path for me. And I like to say, I've trained in voice for years, but I think I found my true voice through doing this and really feeling God's love for me on a very, very deep level. And both Marty's mom and mine were the first Christians in our family, and they made significant changes in their life. However, I think it was to our generation to make new patterns, new pathways, all of the above. So, all right, I'm going to do a quick overview of ADHD. I suspect that many of you have been working in this area for years, but if anyone might not know about ADD, let's just take a second. The tables are set up in a similar way to what we do in the classes. So believe me, the things there are to play with, eat them. They're silly putty, the pipe cleaners, make nice little figures. The fidgets are there on purpose because folk with ADD have a really hard time sitting still. So it's got to be, we got to be able to move. There's the planner that we use for the class. There are the objectives. You see charts there, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But that's one of the assessments we do in the course, and that's yours truly, my results there. So Attention Magazine, so please just enjoy. That's what it's there for. All right, so Russell Barkley, a foremost researcher in the area of ADHD, says attention, is it really attention deficit, or is it a deregulation of attention? Because sometimes we have too little attention, but sometimes we can focus like nobody's business. When we're, we can go faster than anybody. If you want to brainstorm, call us because we're right there. So a deregulation of attention, and this carries over into many areas of life, sleep among them, which requires a great deal of organization. Fidget to focus. People with ADD, for the most part, move in order to focus. The moving brain is the working brain. And there's a wonderful little book, Sarah Wright and Roland Rhodes, and it was written because of Sarah Wright's daughter, and there are incredible sensory strategies in here for leveraging strengths. So we fidget in order to focus. Ned Hallowell, a psychiatrist who has ADD himself, as well as his son, says a surplus of attention that is often unfocused. Structural and functional differences in the frontal lobe. So it is real. 3 types of ADHD. And in the past, we were calling it many things, ADD, and I might call it ADD today just because it's a little easier than ADHD. But that term is really retired in the late 80s, 87. And so 3 types: inattentive, hyperactive impulsive, and combined type. Okay, so even if a person is inattentive, they're still under the umbrella of ADHD, even if they don't have the H. I don't know if I'm in your way over here. So inattentive, these are some of the characteristics that are listed in the DSM-4. Hyperactive impulsive. We all know people like this. I'm combined type, so I get everything. So combined type criteria for inattentive: 6 or more symptoms that are persistent for at least 6 months. So there's some criticism of the DSM-4 regarding ADHD, that it is geared more to a child's diagnosis, and hopefully in the next one we're going to have a little bit more geared towards adults. But for the adult, inattentive might look like time management issues, huge for ADD. ADDers have a fluid sense of time. I'm up north, I'll be down in 10 minutes. We're not really lying, but come on, 10 minutes, down 69, I don't think so. Not living up to their potential, I see this a great deal. Problems with organizing. Hyperactive impulsive may look like angry outbursts, thrill-seeking behaviors, those sorts of things. This is a chart, tip of the iceberg, and I have one of them back there, created by Chris Dendy, an educator, and Marty actually taught a course, took a course of hers, teacher to teacher, and I'm going to be doing parent to parent this fall. But the point of this is that what we see is only 1/8 of the iceberg, and then underneath the iceberg are executive functioning issues, coexisting conditions, and most adults, 80% or so of adults have at least 2 coexisting conditions, 70% of children, so learning disabilities, depression, anxiety, very big. Who wouldn't with ADD, just trying to get through the day? So executive functioning, what is it? So we're talking about the higher brain processes, and research is increasingly explaining ADHD struggles as deriving from executive functioning deficits, or weaknesses. So the executive function, the ability to execute, and I like this analogy being a musician, but executive function directs the orchestra, conducts the orchestra. So if you think of an analogy of instruments warming up, a lot of sound, a lot of noise, it doesn't make sense. There's nothing wrong with the instruments themselves, but they are not pulled together to create, to do what they are supposed to do. And so here's the analogy, and this analogy comes from Dr. Thomas Brown, and you have this chart on the right side of your folder, which I think is really quite wonderful because it really lays out all the areas that are affected. Activation, focus, effort, emotion, that's a big one, memory, action. So our teenagers might not remember that when they did this dumb thing 2 weeks ago, and they do it again today, it's going to be a bad result. Pulling that information together. Okay. And Thomas Brown says that all of these things coming together are what create focus. So this is a course, Success with ADHD, Building Lifelong Strategies, that I started teaching downtown at St. John's, right near here, Lutheran Church, where my husband's been the organist for many years and was the principal of the school at St. John's, which is now sadly no longer. And the Timothy Johnson School is going to be residing for a few years on the upper level of the school. But St. John's was very gracious. They offered space for me to do this class, and I really did want it to be in a church setting because I wanted to associate healing, hope, all of that with Christ in that area. So the classes are 7 weeks. They're 6 weeks, 2-hour classes. Then we break for 1 month, and we come back again. It's sort of like training wheels, but to really see how all of the tools of the class have taken root. And also to celebrate, the last week we watch the documentary ADD and Loving It, with Patrick McKenna, and it's lots of fun, and everybody brings food and treats, and we celebrate. So this course was created by a life coach, Joyce Kubik, who actually lives in Ohio. She had flunked out of school several times as a young person, had a family, went back to school in her late 40s, and this whole course is born out of her struggle, her pain, her difficulties. The planner came out of it. And I'd been coaching some one-on-one, doing a little bit of music, and gone to a coaching convention in Chicago. And Marty and I both are active in Bible Study Fellowship, and so I'd asked my group to pray for me, because sometimes you just meet one person who can change your life. And really that's what happened. I was over a coffee pot, and I don't even really like coffee pot coffee. And I met someone who told me about this course, and he said, you really ought to check it out, because for the price of taking it, you have to be an ADHD coach to take it. You are then free to teach it as long as you give attribution to Joyce. So right there, as a teacher, that told me that she really cared. She really cared about getting that message out. So I do offer a scholarship seat per class. Someone recommended by one of you, a therapist or a pastor, with the thought being, as long as it's truly a person who needs the seat, and who will be faithful to it and who will attend. So each week in this class we do a planner skill, okay, and there is a behavioral model, and so the homework is always some kind of work with the planner and looking for where ADD shows up in your life specifically, okay, really to pinpoint it, because good information is very important, but I do believe the secret of this course is that it has teeth, and it's rubber to the road, rubber to the road. And I've taught it now 8 times, 6 in person, a few times on the phone, and every time I teach it, it changes my life, because I see something I'm struggling with, and I say, that's transitioning, that's shifting, I'm not shifting here, or being late, or whatever it is. So yeah, so the ADD planner, the first, and there's one on the table there, and there's a student one floating around here somewhere. This planner is not very beautiful. I wouldn't buy it on account of how it looks, but it is quite wonderful. There's a portion for journaling, and one of the most powerful pieces, I think, is a planning worksheet that a person can copy out. And what it is, it's for planning long and short-term projects. So on one side it says steps, the task, the estimated time, and the actual time. Well, now you know why that's needed for people with ADD. So we actually do exercises in the class with this. So we get down the parts of a project just right out of our head. It does not have to be in order, because people with ADD have a hard time sequencing and prioritizing. So the idea is just get right down. Then we put them in order, and then we think about the time it's going to take, and then the actual time. And the class works through this together. We do an exercise, a hypothetical exercise. And when we did this in Joyce's class, it was some woman was cleaning out her mom's house and had boxes, and she thought the whole thing would take 30 hours. And by the time we got done, it was 108 hours. So then the words simplify, delegate, eliminate. So it's a reality check. The thing that's unusual about this is undated. Okay, you date it yourself. Well, we actually do this in the first class. There are little glue sticks around, and we glue a calendar in the front. And when we did the class, we had to find our own calendars, but I think another hardship for somebody with ADD, so my dear son found them on the internet, and we actually blew them in. It's very interactive. Our hands are always moving in this class. 2 pages for a day, 2 pages. One is the obvious time, and then the other, there are to-do spots, a place for phone numbers, park your thoughts, huge. With ADD, you know, there's always popcorn thinking, where there are more thoughts going on in our head than anybody else. So it's a way to save the thought, but to get it down here. And then on the other side, today's priority. That's huge. How do you know what to do first? All those unfinished projects, you know, you start something and then, oh, well, that never got done. So what do I, must I do by this day? And the first homework assignment is to track how you spend your time. Joyce calls us writing backwards, but at the end of every day, you go through this side, and how did you spend your time? And that's very revealing about what we value. You know, are we living according to what we value? And one person said, well, you know, I love my kids, and I say they're important to me, but I'm doing things for everybody else. I'm really not spending time with my kids. So it's quite revealing. And then you notice there's a little thing on the bottom, a little corner, and we clip that off. So it's meant to be a kinesthetic anchor. Some people don't like to do it. I love to do it. I thought it was the coolest thing with my little scissors. You know, I did my homework, chop it off. Some people color it in. Some people think it's ruining the planner, so that's fine. They don't have to do it. But anyway, there are journaling sheets. There's a 3-month calendar in the back, which you have to fill in the information, and that's very important, especially with college-age kids, because you're thinking in a semester clip and getting your assignments down and that kind of thing. Okay, let's see what I missed. All right, the course assessment, and you'll see a graph lying on your tables. The first week is probably the busiest week of the class. And this is not a diagnostic tool, obviously, since I am not a mental health professional. It is an assessment tool that Joyce created, Kubik Outcome Rating Scale, and a 22 ADHD traits. Okay, and it's meant to be read. I read it to them, and they sign off on it. And most adults are pretty honest. I find that college kids tend to underrate what their symptoms are. And then these are the 5 factors represented in the course. Okay, and then here's a breakdown of what is included in each of those, and the number on the assessment. And this is something that's a very nice tool to bring to a mental health professional, to bring the chart, because it really highlights what's going on. And the course is designed to address all of these. And most importantly, to help you address it. It's really teaching people to fish. Okay, and there's yours truly. This is the first time I did it. So, and I had lived with ADD a little bit by the time I had done this. And I can really say there's a big difference, for example, in anxiety. I had a 5. Yeah, I mean, I kept lists my life. Sure, I had to, you know, going to school and all of that. But I always had shreds of paper here and there. You know, where's that paper? Yeah, I just had it here. You know? And having everything in the planner in one place was huge for me. And I didn't even realize I was walking around with that much anxiety until I started doing the planner. It's like, wow, this is great. You know, people really plan ahead. Oh boy. You know. We give this back in week 5, and I do say sometimes when we take it, it's sobering for people because they're seeing everything come up at once. You know, and but then by week 5, when they get this chart back, it's really hopeful, because when they look at it, hey, this is not so bad. I'm a little more on top of that thing over there. So it really is a very positive tool. Anyone who takes this class is entitled to be part of a research study which Joyce has conducted called The Efficacy of Coaching for Adults with ADHD. And the course assessment would then be given at a 3-month increment, 6-month increment, and a year increment. So to see if what was taught is really sticking and has made a difference in people's lives. So this is one of the first fine models of the class. I think this is my favorite one. And in the class, they get a blank head. Okay, and the point of that is to keep everybody busy. Okay, it impacts memory when people are writing things down, but it also keeps ADD people involved. So we write short-term memory at the top, and here is the model. We draw little file cabinets, we draw the little pathway. So the analogy is the teacher asks the student, who is George Washington? Well, the person without ADD can run down the path, go to the file cabinets, pull out the information, and come back up, oh, the first president. No sweat, no problem. So the idea is that everything we taste, see, smell, touch, hear is stored away in these file cabinets that are waiting for us to pull it up. And then she actually has in the script of the class, I haven't thought like this one day in my life. Okay, so now we have the other head, and you can guess which head this is. And again, we draw all the little boxes, and we make the files really messy with things coming out of them, draw the pathway. Now this person is being asked, who's George Washington? Well, this person knows, they know, but they can't retrieve it. They can't find the words, they can't get it out. Well, I don't know, there were those cherries. Yeah, and then there was that cherry tree. So far, so good. Then up at the top, cherry pie. My grandmother makes the best cherry pie in the world. And you know what? I got a Wii for Christmas. So who's George Washington? I got a Wii for Christmas. Huh? What? You know where you're going, but nobody else does. So we actually had them draw all of this. The broken path, the cherries, the cherry tree, the cherry pie, and then we draw a circle around the cherry pie with an X mark through. And that is going to represent in the coming week any time you get off task in your life. Where is it exactly that you get off task? You know, maybe you're bringing wash downstairs, heading for the washing machine. So far, so good. You see a pamphlet about vacation, or you start reading that thing, and oh, hey, maybe I could check it out on the internet. You know, and 3 hours later, where is my time gone? And I have a college student. You know, he has a big problem getting from one class to the next because he'll go to the social area and hang out with his friends, be on the computer and stuff. So we actually created a plan for him to stand up when everybody else does, leaving the class, and move with everybody else. So it sounds so elementary, but it's really not. And then he goes directly to the next class, and he parks himself outside the door. And then when he sees people coming, then he gets himself up and moves into the class, because he'd cut class, he'd hang out in the student center, you know, with his friends playing video games, and it's that simple. I mean, for me, I could put one contact lens in, go make the bed, put the other one in. You know, who does that? Who does that? Nobody does that. You know, just let's change it up, a little variety here, whatever. So this path here, you notice that the path is broken here. And Joyce calls this the bridge, and her business is called Bridge to Success. So in that little place, we write the word dopamine. Okay? And we have them actually write that in. So we have inadequate dopamine, and we need to do something to straighten out that path. When students are involved in sports, what is the statistic? 20 minutes of aerobic activity equals an hour and a half of a stimulant medication. I know our daughter was in marching band. I think she had the best grades ever. She got the most done. And at Homestead, and you know what that program is like. But the physical activity was huge, huge for her.
What was that time again?
Sorry?
How much time?
20 minutes of aerobic activity equals an hour and a half of stimulant meds. And I think that was quoted by John Rady in Spark. This is a fabulous book on the benefits of exercise. Fabulous. So, and then we have them write in, without enough dopamine, we are irritable, number 1, 2, less motivated, 3, easily distracted, and 4, we process or think slower. And then the little crook of the neck here, we write 24/7. This is what's going on, 24/7. So, and then a little bit later on in the class, we have them write this statement down. Just because we think it doesn't mean we have to say it or do it. So people with ADD have a very hard time pressing the pause button. You know, it's ready, fire, aim instead of ready, you know, the other way around. So this is a very powerful model for people, very powerful. So that week, they are to notice where they get off task. You know, it could be stopping at an extra store along the way, or whatever it is. And most people really like this a lot. This used to be in week 2, but Joyce moved it to week 1, which makes sense since we're talking about dopamine. And this is Russell Barkley from ADHD and the Nature of Self-Control. And the point being, where there's a little open circle, that's the person who does not have ADD starting the day. Somebody like my husband who pops up like toast out of the toaster, gets going right away, nice steady arch through the whole day, and everybody's dopamine levels fall at the end of the day. And here's a person with ADD, the blackened out area. So that person is starting with this much, and that's how you're starting the day. And now when you think about the sleep disorder issues that people with ADD have, trouble going to bed, staying asleep, waking up in the morning. I have sleep apnea, and I had one college student said, I sit on the side of my bed in a stupor for 20 minutes before I can get going. And I thought, yeah, that's me sometimes. It really is. Not so much, thank God, anymore. But, between depression and sleep apnea and ADD, it's a miracle now that I can get up early and read the Bible. I get up and fall asleep. And I try to put everything, like sweats near the bed, shoes, so that there are no decisions. I get up, put it on, just go. And sometimes, in the morning, if I have to get to church or something, I don't even go downstairs at all, even to make coffee, because I know I'm going to get into trouble when I go down. I'm going to start watering the plants and this and that. So it's like a controlled environment. And then we talk about treatment modalities, and all starting with a good diagnosis. And so Joyce likes Omega Bright. It has 7 times the EPH to DHA, those 2 components of omegas. We talk about stimulants, non-stimulants, exercise. Joyce is a COD-Med trainer, and she really has a lot of great things to say about that. Education is huge, which is what they're doing, coming to the class. Chad, children and adults with ADD. I just can't say enough about that organization. It's simply terrific, really terrific. All kinds of wonderful printables. Once you join, you get this magazine, Attention. There's another ADD magazine, too, called Attitude. But this is wonderful. And here's the guys from ADD and Loving It. Some of you may have seen it on PBS. They're really quite funny. And Chad is connected with one of the 3 resource centers in the nation, helpforadhd.org. And these people are incredible. You can call and say, I need information on teens and driving. Okay, look at this, check this form out here. They're like that. They're fantastic. A support system is huge. I think one of the biggest things in the class is coming out of isolation, and for people to see other people with ADD, and for me too. When I sit across the table, I see myself. I see the face of ADD in somebody else. So, and there's a big gap, as you know, between the lived life and the information that we have. So, I believe ADHD is the most researched area in mental health, but you can see the big lag in everyday living, just all of it. Discovering strengths, working with people, building an ADHD toolbox is part of it. And I think the other part is knowing what you're good at. And I like to do assessments. There's a book back there, AuthenticHappiness.com. Sounds a little odd, but Martin Seligman, Positive Psychology. And he has all kinds of free assessments you can take. And one of them is a VIA character survey. And it's great, because some people with ADD, they really don't even know what they're good at. And they've been so demoralized through the years. And this website's interesting. You have to give them a little bit of demographic information, but there's assessments on like courage, resiliency. So, because if you have ADD and you can't perform, then who are you? So these are geared to your fiber, your character, and quite something.
So which
Sure.
website were you talking about?
Sorry?
Which website were you referring
Oh,
to?
it's Authentic Happiness. The book is over there. It sounds a little frou-frou, but it's really not. AuthenticHappiness.com. And Martin Seligman, I believe, he just felt that he got so much further with people he was working with when they knew what their strengths were. Not only looking at difficult things, but yeah, there it is. And it's really quite a read, quite a great read. Okay, so week 2, BEDs, that's going to be our behavioral model. And we have a depression checklist. And what it is, it's a daily life skill list. So it's to see, am I depressed because I don't have a tool for something, like a planner, or is it something more than that? And we look for one thing in our life that may happen a lot. And it's a great sheet to bring to a mental health professional. And the first class I did, a pilot class in my house, there were 2 middle-aged people, 2 college, different races, and it was interesting. They all said that their true friends they text. And if someone leaves a message on the phone at home, right away it's like anxiety because they want something. They want something from them. And I thought it was very interesting, this thing, and the thing on the form was not wanting to return phone calls. Kind of interesting. All right, so let's move ahead here. The morning routine, this is really funny, and if we had time, I would do it here. we're listing our morning routine. Women usually get a little more stuck in this, and again, not in order, okay? We're just putting down every single thing that we do. And by the time they log their time the week before, they start to see, you know, like I didn't realize I pick up things for 20 minutes every morning. Really? I do that? You know, that emptying the dishwasher really takes 10 minutes. No kidding. I thought that, you know, no wonder I'm late, whatever it is. So we estimate how long each task takes. Then we put the routine in order, and then we add on 10 minutes. And you know why that is. You know, having to come back home, so we forgot something, can't find the car keys, you know, getting into it with somebody, whatever it is. And there was one woman from St. John's, when her son was young, he had a little portable record player, and she would have tapes of what he would do at certain times. So when this song is on, you brush your teeth. When this song is on, you go downstairs. And she really had it planned out. I thought, wow, that is really fantastic. And then if it's an issue for people, we have them put it on index cards, and then they can put it in the kitchen or on their computer or whatever. So when it's 9 o'clock and you're doing something, you know, wayward, cherry pie, you can look at that card and say, it's 9 o'clock, I'm supposed to be doing this right now. And it sounds elementary, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal for people with ADD. By the way, the week before, oh yeah, this is week 2. This is the week that we start planning ahead with the planner too, on the subject of the planner. And it also starts check-ins with the coach. When a person works one-on-one, it's up to them if they want check-ins or not. It's really very co-equal, but since this is an educational model, we're really trying to get the whole accountability issue in place. So I ask them, when they plan the next day, they click the corner, they either text me, email me, or phone me, one of the 3. All right, so taking ownership, the BEDs. And Joyce likes to give an example from her own family where she asked her daughter, where's the dog's leash? And her daughter says, I'm sick and tired of everybody blaming me. It's James' fault. Why? I hate this place. And she goes into this whole thing. All she asked the girl was, where's the dog's leash, you know? And it starts off this whole reaction. So we're talking about blame, excuses, and defensiveness. Very, very big. And when I first did this, I thought, you know, I don't do this professionally. Oh, maybe I do it at home. He's smiling back there. Blame, excuses, defensiveness. Again, back to the executive functioning chart, that emotional modulation, being able to modulate. So when we're being defensive, we're being anxious, and we're looking for these 4 different areas: louder voice, higher pitch, talks fast, and body language tense. So again, we have an empty head here, so we draw the circle, and we have a little pathway going out to the eyeball, and so that is the pathway we want to get out of: blame, excuses, and defensiveness. And we make that little circle with a minus on top. If we're in that pathway, we're headed for trouble. We're heading to the minus side of the world. Okay? So once we recognize we're hearing these things, we can go to the stop sign. They draw the stop sign, and college kids are very happy to point out it does not have the correct number of sides, which I didn't even notice. But so they draw that, have fun with it. When I can press the pause button and recognize what I'm doing, I know, and that puts me up to the plus side of the world. So the ability to press that pause button. Because with awareness comes choice. You know, if you're not aware, there's no choice. So they are then the second week to look for every time their voice gets loud, higher pitch, talks fast, body language, being defensive. And this in turn, that's the next one. But then we get into long explanations because we have this anxious way of thinking. And I had a teacher from New Jersey, and she had marked a student absent, and this kid was never in their seat, and you know, whatever. So the child's mother made a fuss with the office. Principal called her down, and you know, instead of saying, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. Well, you don't know this kid. This kid is always, you know, she's out of her seat, and she, you know, the bottom line is she didn't mark her presence. So, and then we talk a lot about perception. How does what we say, you know, how does it put us out there? What are people thinking about us? And we practice answering simply, and that's very hard for people with ADD. Somebody said, I feel like I'm just cut off. And one gal said, when someone asks her, you know, tell us about yourself, she now says, what would you like to know? You know, people want more information, they'll ask. So week 3, this is another behavioral model, anxiety roadblocks, and we're advancing our planner skills here. We add on to what we do only certain days of the week. There's a chart in there. We pick one of the days, and Joyce says everyone should have at least 7 hours sleep. Yeah, in my dreams. An hour for dinner and an hour of downtime every single day. So those are 9 hours that are set. And then people really list their entire day. And there's always so much more, especially for women. I've seen people are doing so much more than they think they are. And so then this helps again in planning the day. And when we tally up the hours, people, it's really funny, come up with 28 hours, 29 hours with the 7 hours of sleep. So when we get to doing long and short-term projects, well, hey, maybe I only have a half hour a day to work towards this project. And boundaries, the ability to say no, all of it. It's really a tremendous tool. So anxiety roadblocks, this is from Daniel Goleman, emotional intelligence. And again, they start with a blank head. So this is about what we say to ourselves when something terrifying is in front of us. Okay? You notice there's a spot on the left to draw a snake in that spot, and making it scary, fangs, a rattling tail, all of it. So it's something that is placed before us, the paper, the company's coming, the reports due at work, whatever it is that makes our gut clench with ADD, and it's lots of things. So we draw the thalamus, and for our purposes, we write identify on the top line. So we're identifying what is coming into the mind through the 5 senses. Okay, so identify. So, and then we have a line going down. We draw amygdala, and she likes to say Amy G. Dalla. And on the top line, we write emotion/mood. Underneath it, fight or flight. So, when you look at the thinking part at the top, this is all the information coming into our mind and to make a decision. So, for the average person, they may see something a little anxious, but the paper's coming. But I can sit down, I can get it in my planner, I can get on top of it. It'll be doable. I can do it. So they're getting right back up to the thinking part. But the person with ADD, maybe it's a child taking a test, freezes up. They know the material. Maybe it's even a subject they really love, but can't get that information out. So what is happening? I'm stupid. I'm a loser. I'm going to fail. My teacher will be mad at me. My mother will punish me. Whatever it is. And when we get into saying things like that, it's not just once. It's many, many times. So what we say to ourselves, they're roadblocks and prevent us from getting up to the thinking part. So over here, we actually draw little cones, and on this line going up, we put a line on it to fade it. And by those little cones, we ask people to think about what is it you say to yourself when you're under it. Company's coming. My mother-in-law will think I'm a slob. Whatever it is. Whatever it is that locks us up. And then we go through that and we X out the cones. And that week, we're really looking for any situation that freezes us up. And we write stuck in my amygdala. We write on the chart too. And what is it that we're saying to ourselves? And of course, when we say it to ourselves, it doesn't stay there. So what are we putting out there? And in the script of the class, she says, these thoughts are very real and they do happen. It is part of me to get anxious. It is part of me to get anxious. So if someone has a work deadline, instead of, here we go again, maybe how can I make this happen? Who can I call? Who can help? Is it true I'm stupid? No, I'm not stupid. Is it true I can't do this? Yes. Well, maybe I need to get some help then. Okay, so it's a way of speaking back to ourselves about that. Okay, workplace issues, all of that. Learning style assessment, which is lots of fun, and we do spend some time in that area to help people know if they're primarily visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. After doing this, there was one gal who she would always fall asleep reading the Bible in the morning, and she didn't really think she was so kinesthetic, and now she reads standing up. It sounds odd, but for her it works. And there's another person I'm working with. She reads her Bible with a headset on and on the treadmill. I think I'd go a little nuts, but for me, I put a timer on in the morning, and I'll tell you, I get more done in that timer with 20, 25 minutes than I would sitting there for an hour. I'd be all over the place. And sometimes praying is it's difficult because my head is all over. But then, the Holy Spirit intercedes for us. God knows me. He knows my heart, where my thoughts can't come. So we pass out these cards, there are a few on the table, your tables there. Think before you speak. I believe as Christians we're thinking about a lot of these things. And is it necessary? That's huge, huge. The class is limited to 8 people, so that there's lots of time for interaction. But even with fewer people, ADD people like to talk. They like to talk a lot. And so is it necessary? With a girlfriend or friend, maybe we want to know every detail, but someone like my husband will say, where's the dry cleaning? Does he want to hear the whole song and dance? Well, you don't know how much I had to do today. Blah, 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 blah. He just wants to know that I pick it up. Yes or no? Simple. Yes or no? And so we asked them to keep this on their kitchen table. What is the purpose? What can I expect? Joyce would always say, coming home, I always hit that curb coming around the corner. Every time she walked in the door, well, what is her family going to start thinking about her? She's a little loony, she needs to get driving lessons, and her husband may be seeing, dollar signs for putting new tires on. So is it necessary to say that? Do we have to say that? So disclosure or not, we talk a lot about that. This is a wonderful job accommodation network. Are we entitled to accommodations with ADHD? Yes, we are. Now that cognitive areas are considered part of a major life activity, but we talk about would we want to. And this part of the class is interesting because we talk about the positives and negatives of having ADD, and it's very easy to see where somebody is if they throw out all the negative things or more of the positive things. We also have them define ADD as they would to a friend or to an employer, should they do that. And what people come up with is really fantastic. One guy said, it's like having 10 TV sets on in my head at one time and I don't have the changer. Well, yeah, that's it, popcorn, It's very funny. So, and Joyce did an experiment when she was leaving to do her practice full time, disclosing to a higher up. She worked at a bank. Her immediate supervisor knew she had ADHD. Long story short, they ended up putting her from a very responsible position to the Xerox machine, which is really funny because with ADD, that would be a nightmare, boring and then keeping things organized and all of it. So anyway, and several people felt, well, I would tell my employer, this is what I need to function at peak. If you write it down, I'll get it every time. So week 5, organizational skills. We do a long-term project. We talked about that before. Very important because that is really our daily life. FEDs is a behavioral model. Stick to the facts, no excuses, no defensive language. It's a little takeoff on BEDs. What helps me focus? We spend some time with this book, Digit to Focus, and really having people look the next week and notice when something is working well, when I'm focused, what is going on. For me, it would be in a coffee shop with low lights, fluorescent lights, really make me sick. I really feel horrible. And I can have music on. I think being a kinesthetic people, visual people very often need to work quietly. So we really help people dial it in. Delegate, simplify, eliminate, 3 wonderful words that solve almost any problem. Structure, brevity, variety, those are 3 words that reflect the neurology of the person with ADD. So we have brain breaks, keep something short, sprint. When you're doing a nasty task, maybe just 15 minutes and that's it. Get up, do something else, come back again. Structure is huge. We need structure and variety. Okay, and tickler file, I have one of them back there. Tickler file is nothing new. The term comes from tickling your memory. What is different about this class is that it's coordinated with the planner. So there are only 31 days. So if you have a paper with a deadline, it could be November 8th, June 8th, July 8th. It's going to go into the 8th part, the 8th folder. And then in your planner, you're going to put it, say you need this paper for an insurance person, and you need it at 10 o'clock on the 8th. You're going to put T8 on the paper, file it, and in your planner on that day, on the 8th, you'll have T8 at the time that you need that paper, 10 o'clock. Joyce does this with, she likes to read articles at lunchtime, so she actually files her articles and does that. So there are 2 ways to keep papers: permanent file, and this is a file for a deadline. So it's really very effective. So there's some wonderful books about organizing according to learning style. So one size does not fit all, and right brain people tend to resist left brain organizing. So it's not that we don't want to be organized, but we want it to be creative. So, and then we talk about what is coaching, what is ADHD coaching. We actually do a little demo. And this whole class is really, it's framing the coaching experience. So it's certainly a standalone, but then if a person did go ahead to coach one-on-one, you have volumes of information that they know about themselves and I know about them. I think the term is coming from Stagecoach 1500s, a coach taking a person from one place to another, very co-equal. It's always about the client's agenda, always. And even if I see a college kid really needs to make that 3-month schedule, it's always, what would you like to talk about today? And by the end of our time together, what do you want to walk away with? How will we know that we've gotten there? It's that pointed, because it's not what I think is a nice idea. It's not teaching. It's not mentoring. It's all about what they want to do. And there's a dignity of choice in that, because with ADD, people are always having somebody tell them what to do. And it can be very effective working with young people and families too, because I'm emotionally involved with the person. So here's some of the basic focus areas for coaching. Coaching is all about where do you want to go and what is getting in the way. And with ADHD coaching, it definitely has some education in there, because it is almost always ADD getting in the way, as well as life stuff that every person has. So how is ADD coaching different? 4 S's: structure, support, skills, strategies. It could be something as simple as taping your medicine to your toothbrush, forget to take it. Something that simple. So these are just some areas. SDA, single daily action. And in the class, we start with a short-term project, and that's something 2 hours or less. And when people do that, they feel so great about it, and they're ready to tackle the next thing. Little tiny baby steps that for somebody else might not be a big deal, but it is a big deal when you have ADD. Yeah, identify. I never use the word weakness, because most people with ADD are very well aware of. So pattern learning. For example, when I take a class. Teacher class, I'm very up because I love doing it, so then I can come home and do something nasty like fold wash, because that's a boring task. It doesn't have energy. But when I'm up, then just piggyback it on with something else. When is your best energy of the day? Don't try to do something like bills at 9 o'clock in the morning if you're not a morning person. So we really dial those kinds of things in. Rewards are very big, because it actually changes our brain chemistry. It said with ADD, 2 rewards are required, one before and one when you're done with something. And most people, I'll say, how do you reward yourself? And they'll say, well, I should have done it right in the first place, So, but again, that executive functioning, we don't have the necessary, we have trouble initiating something. So, a Christian coach, a biblical worldview. And Christian coaching is very different, of course, because we are under the lordship of Jesus Christ. We're not masters of our own destiny. And a coach is supposed to be a blank slate, but of course, everyone has a worldview. So, considers God's word is our guide, prays for clients. Man is created in God's image, and we find fulfillment only when we're living in accordance with His plans. And the rest of it. And that's really, it's been my joy and privilege to work with Christians, honestly. So, we come back, the last week we talked about there's an article called the Vacation Article, and it's about unpacking your suitcase and what might you be carrying around with you from years of people saying, you're a slacker, you're so smart. If you just braved up, you could get it done. What's the problem? What's wrong with you? So we talk about the residuals of ADD. And upcoming events, I start another cycle coming Monday in the fall. I had done afternoons too, but this fall I'm doing a parenting class, so I'm just doing one in the evening. Maybe in the spring I'll do a day. I did a teleclass last year, but truly I'm such a visual person that I really didn't like doing the teleclass, not seeing people and moving around and so forth. Parent to parent, I have the teacher's manual back there. It's a CHAD course. Everyone who works for CHAD is volunteer in their capacity. I'll be there as a parent. And I have a separate flyer you have in your folder with a separate email, because they don't want people trafficking your website or anything like that. It's very clear cut. Even if someone asks me in the class, what do you do? That's something I can't speak about now. They're very clear guidelines. So there is a separate email address on that flyer where people can reach me. And you have it in 2 versions in your folder. One is a flyer that can be reproduced, and the other is in a folder form. And if you ever need materials or whatever, I'm happy to get those to you. So, outstanding. Overview of ADD, multimodal treatment, behavioral management. These portions are excellent. These 4 hours are out of this world. Out of this world. Strategies for families. educational rights, building an education team. It's super. And we as teachers have to build a learning center. And there's a lot that goes with it. But in my own life, we came to it late in the game, so I felt that the area of children is something I really knew less about, which is really why I wanted to do this. So this is going to be at St. John's also on Tuesday evening starting in September. And there is a cost for them to do it, but it's volunteer on our part. So Sharon is going to be doing this conference coming up at Central Christian, Pool Common Collected, and the principal had put in organizer Fort Wayne or something and pulled up my name, and I thought that was so funny for for pulling up the person with ADD. I'm in the collected. I don't know which portion you're in, but I thought, oh boy, that's a sense of humor. Then National Conference, these guys, ADD and Loving It, are going to be presenting there, as well as Hallowell. It's in Orlando this year, so we're hoping to go, and all of the greatest people. So I would like to